Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. For any first-time listeners out there, there's got to be a few. I'm sure there's some every week. What we do here is there's a couple different formats. Most of the time, I will bring on felons, people who have been through the criminal justice system, to share their stories, share their experiences. That is my guest today, although it is my guest's second time on the show. My guest today is Michael Monsivais. I will introduce him shortly. But also, we'll have different formats. We'll have roundtable discussions, things of that nature. I'll bring on, I've had on experts in forensics and fingerprints, and I've brought on former law enforcement and prison guards and all that kind of stuff. So the show is wide-ranging, but it has a singular focus of exposing injustice in the broken criminal justice system. And if you don't think the criminal justice system is broken, then this probably isn't the show for you. So you can just stop it right now, and I saved you time. You can listen to something else. But if you do think it's broken, or if you want to learn more about what's wrong with it and maybe how to fix it, then this is the show for you. And you can subscribe to the Felony Friday podcast and the Lions of Liberty podcast, which actually has two other shows. Those two other shows, one hosted by Mark Claire, which is every Monday. It is our longest running show, our flagship program. Every Wednesday, we have a show hosted by Brian McWilliams. It's called Electric Liberty Land. Brian's doing a great job with that show, and I've actually done an experiment. I have stopped reading the news almost entirely for the last couple weeks here, and I've only listened to Electric Liberty Land for my news. So we'll see. We'll see how I do out there. So we'll see if I make it, without reading the news and just listening to Brian. But Brian does a fantastic job, so I'm sure I'll be fine. To get all three of those shows, be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. There's hundreds of podcast apps. People like them for all kinds of different reasons. Pound that subscribe button. You get all three of these shows delivered to your little cell phone in your pocket. And that's it, guys. Today's show, my show with Michael Monsivais. It's episode 190 of Felony Friday. That means the show notes page can be found at lionsofliberty.com/FF109. And let's get rolling into the show. My guest today on Felony Friday is Michael Monsivais. This is Michael's second time on the show. And, I knew after I interviewed him the first time that I was going to have him back on just because he was already working on so much stuff so quickly after getting out of prison. He was working on criminal justice reform, on helping people getting out of prison get certified in welding. He started a new organization. So I want to talk about all that stuff. Just real quickly about Michael. He spent time in prison, and like I said, he's been working for criminal justice reform. He has been in the news recently. Reason talked about his case in an article while he was in prison, and we talked about this the last time he was on, but I want to go into it again because I think it is very important, especially with everything going on with Jeffrey Epstein and really the Bureau of Prisons being shown for what they are is being pretty incompetent and negligent and really a pretty terrible organization. But I don't want to give away all the details, but Michael was really severely injured during a prison riot that he had nothing to do with, the prison fight, I guess I should say, and was thrown in the SHU, in the special housing unit, for 71 days. So I want to talk about all that stuff, about everything Michael's working on. So Michael, welcome back to Felony Friday.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back and give you and the rest of the people update on everything that's going on.
Yeah, man. So, before we get started talking about, I want to go back into what happened to you while you were in the federal prison with, I guess, the flashbang grenade and all that stuff, the injuries. Before we do that, though, man, I follow you on social media, and I think anybody listening out there should give you a follow as well. If you could just talk about, first of all, give your social media handles. But I mean, you've been hanging out with some celebrities. You've been all over the place. If you could just talk about that for a minute at the top.
Yeah, well, for all your listeners, if they want to follow what's going on, what we're doing out here, they can follow me on Instagram at Chino_Mike909, or on Facebook under Michael A. Monsivais. Last name's Monsivais. So so John, so since I've been home from prison, man, it's been off to the races. As soon as I got out of the halfway house and was free to move around, I've been making some moves. I've stuck to my commitments on what I had planned to come home to do, which was first getting back on my feet. I got right back in the union, started working like immediately, doing some very big projects. So I've been working now. I've been out of the halfway house now going on 9 months. So, I'm already halfway to buying a house. So
awesome.
We're doing really good.
Hey, quick question on, you said you got back into the union. Is that something that could be hard to do for, somebody in your position who has, because you were already a certified welder, right, before you went in?
Yeah.
Was that hard to do, or what'd you have to do to get back in the union?
No, well, I had a good reputation with the union despite, the mistakes I'd made in the past. And so and then with all the success I had while in prison by creating the welding programs and all the other programs I created. And so I even had the union involved with my programs at the federal prison in Lompoc. So when I came home, their arms were wide open and they accepted me right back. And, they helped me get right back to work immediately. Within the first week, I was already working. So
awesome.
For others, that's why I'm doing everything I'm doing, John, is because when I was teaching the welding program at Lompoc, when I developed that program, 90% of the students in the class did not know that they could join a union. They thought because they had a record that they had no chance at all of getting into the union and getting a good career. So I explained to them, that's a myth and it's not true. You can get in the union. You can, work your way up in an awesome career, So I said, well, just don't take it from me. Once you hear it from my business agent. So I created a separate program called the Building Trades Event, which every year, maybe once or twice a year, we would have agents from several trades, from several building trades in the unions come out and talk about each individual, specialty and opportunities for individuals like my students to come home and get into. So we did that for several years and it was a big success because it's one thing for me to say it, but it's another thing for the actual business agent to take the time to come out and talk to the students. So with that, I am now doing what I did in there out here by getting ready to start my own school out here, as well as get people into the apprenticeship programs, get them vocational training in welding so that we can get them off to a good career so they can provide for their families, because working at McDonald's in a warehouse, that's a dead-end job. You ain't going to get nowhere. But with the union, you have set scales, you got set, pay grades and upgrades. So, it's, you can't lose getting into the union and making a good living, living and taking care of your family. So that's
and it's a skill. So, I mean, if you move around the country, you can take it with you, right?
Yeah, you can go anywhere.
So you're starting a school, you said?
Yeah, I'm in the process of trying to start a school under my organization, No More Locked Doors.
Right.
We just got our federal tax ID number about maybe a month and a half ago. So we're in the pending stages right now of getting certified through the IRS and the federal government, to become official. But they have said we are legally able to operate. So with the partners I have, I have a great team behind me, some big people. And once we get some grants, I plan to build a center or get a building and build a center in there and bring welding and some other things, some counseling and stuff like that for individuals that are coming home from prison. And I'm also working with youth at Chino Hills Boys Republic Juvenile Placement. So we got some great partnerships going on with them. We're kicking around some ideas about maybe creating a school on their facility and teaching the kids in the daytime, and then, my other guys at night. So a couple of different, opportunities that we're looking into to see which will work best, for what we're trying to do.
Right. Hey, I know we talked at the top of the show about what we were going to talk about. I'm going to go a little bit off script, but I think this is worthwhile. I just thought of it now. So, a lot of people, and we might have talked about this a little bit the first time you were on the show. I can't remember. Anybody should, if you're listening to this now, go back and listen to that whole first episode. I'll link to it on the show notes page. You can find that show linked at today's show, which the link will be lionsofliberty.com/FF190. We'll have Michael's previous appearance on that show as well. So somebody in your position that, you've been to prison, I'm not saying this is you, but I'm saying somebody who would be in your position, getting out of the halfway house, you might be feeling down on yourself. How have you been able to channel and move so quickly in order to start this organization, become so active in the criminal justice community, have these, what really, made me ask this question was, you're just talking about these visions that you have. And, last time you were on, you were doing the same thing. You were talking about things you wanted to do, and you're doing it. I mean, you're putting a vision in front of you, then you're going out and you're executing. So what is, and I think this is going to be a very, good for anyone to hear. Even if you haven't been to prison, you have anyone, entrepreneurs out there. How do you go about doing that? Like, how do you set that vision and then make sure to, do the action steps to get it done?
Well, I had to take a deep look into myself, John. I had to see what was I doing wrong. I was lost for so long. I had no proper guidance. I didn't have any like real motivation and somebody trying to, set me on a good path. Mm-hmm. So, when I first got in the union, I really didn't know what I was doing. It was just like a job to me. I didn't really understand. I didn't have, people trying to tell me what great things were available to me. I just kind of landed in a job and I was working. I really didn't understand, the possibilities with it. So I wasted so many years getting in trouble, making mistakes, hanging around with the wrong people, and just caught in that web, the street lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So I see that happening to so many people. I see it coming from my neighborhood, which is a very old neighborhood, and generations after generations after generations are from the neighborhood. So in order to break that cycle, we got to start reaching out to the younger generation to teach them something better, something more positive, other possibilities other than selling drugs, running the streets, gang banging and all that stuff. And instead of just teaching them, the old ways, teach them, better ways, because that stuff's over with. There's no future in that. And I've seen so many of my friends lose their lives in the streets or lose their lives to lives in prison. And so I don't want to see that. I don't want to see other families hurting because they lost somebody. I don't want to see my family hurting because either I'm gone or my kids lost their father. So mm-hmm. I had to figure, what can I do to break this cycle? And then just being in the criminal justice system for so long, seeing all the injustices, all the stuff that goes on behind the wall with, prison guards and how they treat, individuals that are in their care. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I became an activist, because, the system's broken. People are finally getting it across the United States. We got this massive movement for prison reform and all this stuff. And a lot of people don't really know what's going on behind them walls. A lot of people don't understand what's going on in them courtrooms. I received almost a life sentence for 38 grams of methamphetamine. And I eventually was forced to take a deal of 130 months or risk the life imprisonment.
Right.
And it's just because of overzealous, prosecutors, and, to them it's numbers. How many man years they can get under their belt of incarceration. That's what it boils down to. And so I've seen so many people, including, not just myself, but others, get screwed way worse than me. So, that's why I became, active And I said, you know what, I gotta actually try to do something to change this. And using my story and the stories of some of my friends, a lot of my good friends got some powerful stories as well. And so, with together, I got Weldon Angelos on my board. I got Mr. Washington, the artist, on my board. And I did time with these guys in Lompoc, and Weldon got a 55-year sentence for $900 worth of marijuana, and now it's legal, and people are making millions off it.
Right.
And if it wasn't for a lot of big people and activists coming to help him, including his former judge, he would still be doing 55 years for something that's pretty much illegal across the United States. And same thing with Mr. Washington. He did 21 years, and now he's both of them are out. So with them and many others, we're just sharing the injustices and trying to get the system to become more fair, more just, because there's no justice in it today.
Right on, man. And Weldon's been on the show. I'll link to that on the show notes page as well. Mr. Washington has not. We got to get him on the show too.
We got to get Mr. Washington. You think I'm moving? Mr. Washington is all over the place. That guy,
yeah,
he's doing a lot of amazing things, and it's just so awesome how my story started with both of those guys at Lompoc.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them were involved with the welding program when I first started putting it together by scribbling notes on a piece of paper. Both of them, Mr. Washington painted an amazing mural in the welding shop for me, and I'll send you the pictures to that. It was like 16 feet high by like 20 feet wide, huge.
Wow.
And Mr. Weldon had typed some stuff up for me because he worked in the computer class and he had access to computers. So pretty amazing to have known those guys and started that program with them.
Yeah, very cool, man. I do want to come back to, so you're talking about the Bureau of Prisons, the way they're treating prisoners. And if you could just go over really your story. I mean, I know the last time you were on the show, we went over it in depth, but I think, right now there's sort of really more attention right now on the, whatever you want to call it, incompetence, neglect, maybe it's outright just cruelty that's going on. With probably a little bit all three of those things. But
I like to call the Bureau of Prisons the most corrupt organization. Well, one of the most corrupt organizations in criminal justice or in law enforcement, because basically at the end of the day, they're officers of the law, and the stuff that they get away with and the things that happen in federal prison is like, it's mind blowing that they get away with this continuously. And so that's what even drove me more, because of what they did to me and to a lot of my friends on that day on June 17th. June 21st, 2017, when there was a fight outside the building, not even near the building, but a little good distance away. And an hour later, they came into our building, a peaceful, compliant building, and they discharged 6 grenades in there, and 2 of them landed right next to me for no reason and caused me severe injury. And then for them to send me to this, to the hole, to the shoe, to cover it up so my injuries can heal. And then that messed me up in my drug program, which cost me 6 more months in prison when I was already coming home. And after I had done all these great things and had 0 disciplinary infractions the entire time I was at Lompoc, which was at that time, I think I was just at Lompoc for 6 years. So, and the fact that they told me, oh, don't worry about it, you're going to be all right, we're going to take care of it. They never take care of nothing. They let me sit in there and rot. And then when they couldn't justify keeping me no more, they were forced to let me go. And only because I had a Congresswoman, Congresswoman Norma Torres, looking into it, they were forced to let me go. And they admitted to her that after their investigation, they found no wrongdoing on my part. So they had to let me go. If it wasn't for her, I would have probably still sat in the shoe. I would have been transferred and they would have buried me somewhere else. But I think she actually helped,
So how did she hear about it?
Well, I had friends and family, contacting all kinds of people when I was sitting in the shoe, because after a month, when they already had released 200 people after like 2 weeks, And I was starting to get this feeling, hey, something's wrong here. You know, if 5 staff witnesses gave statements on my behalf that I was in the building and not outside, and the unit I was in was the drug program, which everybody in there told the RDAP staff that I was in the building and I didn't do nothing. I was following the directions I was given, which was to get down on the ground, and you know, I did that. So the fact that all this time was passing and nothing was being done, I became, you know, concerned. So I wrote the family and said, hey, this is what's going on. I think you guys should look into this because, you know, something ain't right here. And so they started calling, you know, all kinds of people.
Yeah, so I had last week I had Larry Levine on the show, and I your case was in my mind, but I didn't think to say it because we were talking about the shoe and Epstein being in the shoe, and I was talking about the reasons why people would go to the shoe, and he said for disciplinary reasons, and I would say, well, you know, sometimes other things can happen, and I was thinking of your case, but I wasn't at the same time. I wish I'd brought it up then, but yeah, they'll use it as a way to hide their own neglect, their own incompetence, their own mistakes. But so 71 days you spent in there, 71 right?
Days, yeah. I was the last released person from that incident to come back to the shoe. They took 300 people to the shoe. They let 200 out after about 2 weeks. Most of those 200 were either outside in the direct area where the fighting occurred or in the housing units nearest to the location where it occurred. So to me, I was like, how can you let all these people out who were in the, you know, immediate vicinity, and yet, you know, I'm on the other side of the prison in another building, which all you guys were standing outside of, which had, I think I counted 52 or 54 windows surrounding the building, so you could see inside and know nothing's going on in there. The unit officer never called for assistance. So, I mean, why would I be sitting in there so long? So that's when I became concerned, and I said, you know what, I'm pretty much sure that they don't want me out because of my injuries, and they don't want people to see the extent of my injuries, and they don't want me to take photos of my injuries. And so when they eventually let me out, first thing I did is I bought 2 photo tickets from the commissary and went and took some pictures in the designated photo area of my injuries. And guess what? The special, the SS, what do they call it? Special SIS, the Special Investigative Services, which are like, you know, the investigators in the investigate, you know, wrongdoing and crime and stuff. They took the pictures from the commissary and would not release them to me. They confiscated them. So I challenged it, and I was fighting it, and I said, hey, they said I couldn't have it because they were indecent. So I said, what do you mean indecent? It's a picture of my leg. I said, you guys injured my leg. You guys know. Oh, he said, well, we can't tell who's in the picture because it's just the leg. I said, well, the photo docket, you guys know, has my name on it that I bought from commissary. It comes with my name on it. I said, and the fact that you sent me a notice that you confiscated my picture tells me that you know who's in that picture, or else how would you know to tell me that you took my pictures? Exactly. So we went at it for a while, and they just, you know, they eventually released those photos to me, but because it's you know, cheap camera, cheap, you know, you can't really see as good. And this is like 4 months after, you know, the injuries. So those photos didn't come out too good. So I wasn't able to really use those in anything. The photos that I've been trying to get for since the incident were the ones that the SIS took of my leg, and they also took live video with digital cameras. And those just show my leg shredded up. The sweats were completely blown off. I was burnt all down my left side, my arm and my leg. And they will not to this day release them. A reporter, well, CJ, the reporter from Reason Magazine, filed a Freedom of Information Act request to the BOP and to the FBI. And the FBI says they don't have nothing, which the BOP said they were investigating. The FBI was the ones investigating the matter. They never investigated because they said they didn't. Then
I don't know why the FBI would be investigating that.
Well, a lot of times the FBI investigates because federal prisons fall under, you know, federal jurisdiction of the
Mhm.
FBI. So when serious stuff happens, the FBI does come in and investigate, but they said they didn't investigate nothing, I guess,
Hmm.
pertaining to this incident. So the BOP stated to reporter CJ that they claimed all kinds of confidentialities and all kinds of just fake excuses of why they could not release these photos. And the reason they don't want to release them because they're completely the opposite of what were written in those medical reports when medical uh, listed my injuries. They downplayed it to like minor, abrasions they called them, and they said like a pain scale 3, and they said the incident happened outside where the actual fighting happened. I mean, everything was a lie, everything was false, and they know that if these pictures and videos come out, it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows, and a lot of people are going to be like, hey, if he was in this building and he didn't do nothing, and you guys know he didn't do nothing, why was he hurt? They still have not to this day answered the fact that I was injured. They won't touch that subject. They just said I was taken to the SHU, and after the investigation, I was released and cleared of any wrongdoing. That's all they'll say. They won't say nothing about me. How was I injured then? If I didn't do anything wrong and I
Right.
wasn't where the fighting was, then how did I get injured?
Yeah. And it's not like any of the BOP, the people involved, they weren't reprimanded or anything,
No. The warden retired, and the other ones, the captains and the lieutenants and them, they were laughing and they thought it was all funny and basically said good luck and we're immune and you can't touch us, and they told me a lot of stuff
So what do you think,
like that. And I was retaliated a little bit.
what do you think needs to happen with the BOP? I mean, obviously there could, we could change the whole prison system, but, which is probably what needs to happen. But like, are there like small things, like say if you were put in charge of the Bureau of Prisons, I mean, what are some small changes? There's something you could do tomorrow that would make things better.
Well, they got to put they can't you can't let the BOP investigate themselves. I mean, come
Exactly.
on, are you going to find yourself guilty of doing something? All these people's grievances or torts or whatever should be taken to an outside agency, an independent agency where they would get a fair look at versus their friends ain't going to find their friends
Mhm.
guilty of anything. And I was even pulled aside by the SIA, which is the one that supposedly investigates all the accusations against staff. And basically, he was trying to he was just trying to discourage me from even filing anything. I filed a criminal complaint against government officials for any for injuries or for my injuries and stuff, and they
Mhm.
never even responded to this date. I sent a couple of them certified mail, and so they don't want to touch it because they know there's no way to get around it. And the fact that I just came home, I don't have money to afford a federal attorney to fight this matter. I haven't been able to find any legal aid or assistance to at least get
Right.
into court so we can get the court to subpoena these photos and videos.
So what was the when you were in the SHU? I asked you this with the Epstein case in mind. Supposedly he hung himself. What,
If he's I'm an expert in this field because for I want to say at least 3 years, 2 to 3 years, I was a suicide watch cadre for the BOP. I was trained. I was specially trained, and we had training every month, and I went through intensive training to um, to work with suicidal inmates. So anytime an inmate came through and had suicidal, tendencies, or he was thinking, just anything that was of concern to that individual safety, they would contact um, the cadres, which there was a whole team of us, and we would work with them. If they felt he was serious enough to possibly hurt himself, they would put him in suicide watch. He would sit behind a glass in a glass cell, I guess you can say, with a real thick quilted like smock, so you can't like twist it up and hang yourself with it. It just slides right over them, and basically nothing else. So there's nothing in there for this individual to hurt his or herself, but in this case, males, because it was a male prison. But There's no way they can. There's cameras everywhere, and they know when people are suicidal. They're watched even when they're back in the general population. So to me, it raises a lot of questions whether there was some other stuff going on, and I wouldn't put it past the BOP or the government in general
Mm-hmm.
from having their hands in some way in this matter with Mr. Epstein.
Yeah, well, it's just all kinds of crazy stuff there. With apparently he was allowed to leave the shoe 8 hours a day and meet with a lawyer. Have you heard about that? Which
When you're on suicide watch, ain't nothing happening. You're stuck in suicide watch. Even in the shoe, when you got visiting, you're under supervision. You're under videos. You're under they you're not just right there out in a blind spot where you can do something crazy. Federal government, they have cameras everywhere in prison. So.
Well, apparently these cameras malfunctioned at the exact
time.
time.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did malfunction. Coincidentally, just at that time too.
Yeah, exactly.
They were working probably right after the matter.
Yeah, this is the one case that is it's turned everyone in the United States into a conspiracy theorist. But anyway, man, I want to take the last segment here, the last time we have to talk about No More Locked Doors, what you're doing with that organization. So if you could just share really what the mission, what the vision is, and where you see it going.
Okay, well, just to make it real quick and simple, No More Locked Doors. I just, I thought of I was thinking, what am I going to name my organization? So I remember the movie Friday, and I remember there was a little scene that this guy did, and he was joking around, and he says no more locked doors and stuff, and it's kind of like a known thing here in Southern California. It's kind of like a little street thing, and it's funny and stuff. So, I kind of said, you know what? There's a double meaning to that. No more locked doors. Okay, so I'm fighting against this unjust system. So we're trying to shut down prisons and no more locked doors. And also the fact that most of my students in the welding program thought that the unions and all these other opportunities were closed to them because of the records. I said, that's a perfect name, No More Locked Doors, because we're opening doors that were maybe in the past could have been closed to individuals like me and others that have trouble past. But we're going to give these guys an opportunity. We're opening them up, and we're going to help them, get back on a better path and stuff like that. So because of the stories that Families Against Mandatory Minimums, another big organization that I work with, published that first story, Success on the Inside, it's gotten a lot of attention. And then the Walt Pavel Forbes story as well. A lot of I've been invited to a lot of events. I went to the Rolling Stone, a Variety magazine event. Been invited to events with Cut 50, Van Jones, Kim Kardashian, all these people, Meek Mills. I was just with Danny Trejo, Alyssa Milano, Baby Bash, Mr. Criminal, who's another recording artist. Got all these people supporting the No More Locked Doors because they understand that individuals, coming from poor neighborhoods in the streets, don't really have a fair shot. So they believe in the mission, the cause. We're going to get these guys mentorship. We're going to get them vocational training. We're going to get them placement in the unions, in the apprenticeship programs. If they need counseling, I got a board member that's a psychologist. So, I got a big network of great people from government. Congresswoman Norma Torres' office is behind it. State Senator Connie Leva's office is behind it. State Assemblyman Freddie Rodriguez is behind it. United Way, Volunteers of America, Families Against Mandatory Minimums, Anti-Recidivism Coalition. I mean, the list goes on and on of all these people getting behind this. I got Tattoo. He works directly for Ice Cube. He's been a TV and radio personality for 18 years. I was actually incarcerated with his father, and he understands, not having his father for, I think he said 30 some years, it messed with him. And so we're trying to stop that because we don't want the next generation growing up with all these problems and getting entangled in this street life and this criminal justice system.
What do you think? I mean, I like how you're naming all these celebrities you've been hanging out with so casually, but what do you think really was the tipping point that has caused, so many of these celebrities, so many of these pop culture figures to really wake up and, understand that this change needs to happen now and actually start working to make the change happen?
Well, they're just seeing. Okay, it starts with, like, one big person coming out and saying, "Hey, man, this ain't right." And then so a lot of people didn't realize the stuff that was going on in these courtrooms, how people were getting outrageous sentences for
Hmm.
minor crimes, And so the more people are getting behind it, like Van Jones and Kim Kardashians and Meek Mills and Michael Rubin and Robert Kraft and all these people, Scott Butnick. Oh my God, that guy right there has been doing some great things out here in Southern California. And so with the platforms like that, they're getting it out there. Hey, man, this system's broken, and look at all these people that are getting these crazy sentences for small time, in most cases, small time nonviolent drug offenses.
Right.
And so, the public is, now catching on. Hey, this ain't right. And they've seen too many, people of color, minorities, black and brown, uh, picking up, the blunt, the worst part of it. So, with Danny Trejo, he did time back in the 60s. He did a lot of time back in the day. And he got a break, and he got tired of that lifestyle, and he got tired of using drugs and alcohol, and he's been clean 30 some years, and he's been out of prison since 1969, so he's been doing a lot of great things too for a lot of people. And so just with people like him coming out and talking about it, and Alyssa Milano coming out and just being a
Hmm.
great activist for so many things. And we're just waking up a lot of these other people, and they're saying, yeah, you know what, we need to start doing things. We need to start using our platforms and our status to help our people. And so when I told them my story and they see what I'm doing, they said, hey, you know what, you're the perfect person to get behind and start doing this. Because a lot of them didn't, might have, some people like Tattoo said, we've seen the injustices, but we didn't know how to get involved, we didn't know how to start. So with you, you're the perfect vehicle to help get us going, and help help us use our platforms to help our people.
That's awesome, man. I think it's so interesting that in this time, this country is so divided on almost every other issue, but on criminal justice reform, almost everyone, it's never going to be everyone, but almost everyone, right, left, center, whatever, is united on this. It's really incredible to watch. And that's one of the reasons, and I've talked about this the past couple weeks on my show, that I'm going to be moving this show, Felony Friday, into its own solo feed. It'll still publish in the Alliance of Liberty feed as well. But, I think it needs to be sort of standalone right now. I don't want to attach a label to it, have a political ideology attached to it, because criminal justice reform, it's just the right thing to do. And I don't care if you're liberal, I don't care if you're a conservative, I don't care, what your mindset is. If you want to work to free, nonviolent people who have, maybe they've just sold a plant, or, people who are doing decades in prison for consensual transactions, if you're willing to stand up for that, we can talk about the other stuff later. Let's work on this together now. So
Exactly.
it's an amazing thing to watch. And I think in the next, 2, 3, 10 years, there's going to be some huge changes for the better. We're going to see in the system. And I mean, your organization is certainly one leading the way. So if people want to, learn more about No More Locked Doors, if they want to help out, I don't know if that's possible yet.
That's possible. We got tax ID numbers, so we can legally operate now. So that's the problem, is I'm doing everything not on my own, because I got some good people getting behind me, but it started on my own. I've been doing it out of my own pocket, and just coming home from prison and not having, just starting from scratch. It hasn't been easy. So yeah, we can definitely use the help, because once we get through this last little hurdle of becoming certified, then it's, the sky's the limit. We can do so much great things out here.
Do you have a website operating yet?
We don't have a website yet, because I just don't have the money to pay to have somebody do it. But right now, the best way to follow everything is I'm doing everything myself on my Instagram page, at Chino Mike, or on my Facebook page. I do have a No More Locked Doors page, but I just, because I work, in the field with the union welding and doing the construction, I just don't have time to maintain all the pages. So the one I get on most is the Instagram. So that's the best way
Okay,
to follow
awesome.
what we're doing.
And if anyone out there listening wants to volunteer their time to help build a website for Mike, I mean, would you take that if somebody wanted to help out?
We could take all the help we can get right now, because right now we're just in the early stages. So so far, I don't know if you've seen the videos that three of my participants have they were so kind to post for me. But one of my friends, Jamie, just got out of federal prison. She got out of the halfway house about a month ago, and she heard me speak at a drug program event about what I'm doing and my story and stuff. And
Mhm.
so she got inspired, and she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to get in the union. Can you help me?" I said, "Sure."
Awesome.
I said, so we got her going. She's working on the 405 freeway project for about a month now, and she's making good money, and she's off to a whole new career and start. And I got two other friends in welding school right now with two of the partnership schools that I got. So, we're doing what we can, even without a budget. But, with the budget, we can do a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm. All right, man. Well, it's great getting to talk with you again. I know last time we didn't get to see each other, so it's
Yeah, yeah.
good to see you too.
I'm getting a little bit better on this stuff, on the technology.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at your social media account, you're doing social media better than I am, so I can learn something from you.
Okay.
But man, yeah, and I was serious about it before. If somebody wants to, help out Michael here, if they have some skills in designing websites or whatever, and you want to help the criminal justice movement, you can reach out to me, Felony Friday at lionsofliberty.com. I'll connect you guys, or you can reach out directly to him too, of course, if you're comfortable doing either. But any parting words before I let you go today?
I just want to say thanks to everybody out there, especially my team, for believing in me, for getting behind me, for doing everything they do. My partner, Paula Rosado from the Univision Network, has been awesome. She has done all the legwork as far as all the paperwork to even just get filed for our nonprofit. So a big shout out to her, to my boy Tattoo, Baby Bash, and Danny Trejo, and all the great people just supporting us and believing in us, and the American Wellness Society, of course, my union, Southern California Carpenters, for believing in me and giving me that chance as well, and supporting what we're doing and taking these people in and giving them a shot as well. And everybody out there that wants to be a part of it, follow the movement, get behind it. And I can't do all this alone, so it's going to take a lot of people to make this real change. So the more the better.
All right, man. Michael Monsivais, thank you for coming back on this show.
Thank you for having me, John, and we're going to have some more updates for you soon. So
sounds good, man.
We'll be in touch.
All right.
All right, you take care.
All right. I want to thank Michael once again for coming on the show and for everything that he's doing to reform the criminal justice system and to help people with a criminal background to find success after prison. Like I said during the interview, man, I am so impressed with Michael's drive. Not only that, the way he's able to set a vision and go out and execute. And I think anybody, if you're former felon or not, anybody can learn a lot from the way that Michael is living his life right now, taking action. So awesome to have him as a guest today. As I mentioned during the show, Felony Friday is going to add, I should say, a solo feed. That's going to happen in early September. And I want, I'm going to need some help with that, with launching it. I want to keep it, a core group of people who are, really diehard fans of the show. I want to keep you guys really involved with the launching of it and the development of it and things like that. So can you do me a favor? If you love this show, even if you haven't been listening for a while, but maybe it's only a couple episodes you've listened to, but if you care about the mission of this show, if you care about reforming the criminal justice system and taking the message of this show, the stories here of the individuals who have suffered through the criminal justice system, if you want to elevate those stories to the mainstream, please go to Facebook and join my Felony Friday podcast group. Just search on Facebook for Felony Friday podcast, click join, and I'll get you in. It's going to be it's going to be so great to have some help, people to, go out and help to share the new podcasts, subscribe to the new podcast feed, of course, all that stuff. So if you want to be involved in that, please join the group. With that being said, guys, the only other thing I will mention is, as you know, here at Lions of Liberty with Mark and Brian, we're trying to expand everything, not just Felony Friday, the whole show. And we got some things we're going to be announcing with some of our goals that we have for ways we'd like to grow. And what you can do is go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty to join the Lions of Liberty Pride. Not only can you support us, but we have all kinds of great content, bonus content. We have bonus shows, Conspiracy Corner, which, looks into different conspiracy theories, things like that. Rico and Mark and Howie and JB have some fun with that show. We have a show called Degenerate Gamblers, which has nothing to do with politics. It only has to do with gambling. And myself and Brian and Rico will do some fake betting on some games, talk about some sports and things like that. So you can check that out. And, of course, you got all the other stuff that we talk about on the Patreon page at the different levels, all the free stuff, interaction with us, our private Facebook group. You can get access to that private Facebook group for just $2 per month. So that's the lowest level of the two. The highest is our $100 per month level. And at that level, you get one ad per week on the Lions of Liberty podcast. That is a ridiculous discount. 4 ads for $100. Our rates are much higher than that. So if you have a little small business, something online, or you're trying to, build a brand out there, please consider joining the Lions of Liberty Pride at the $100 level. You're going to get all the other bonuses too, and you get an ad. 4 ads per month for $100. Great deal. Check that out. Patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. I have talked enough. I want to thank you guys for listening. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.